Gregg Berhalter is officially back as the US men's national team head coach after the 2023 Gold Cup. Again. And like it or not, we will probably see him as the head coach of the 2026 World Cup for the United States, the most important World Cup in US men's national team history. A good chunk of the fan base was against his rehiring, even the ones that thought he did a good job. So what if I asked you, what does Gregg Berhalter have to do to win you over? Hi, new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to our Berhalter special. Today I'll be going through everything I'd like to see from Berhalter on the Berhalter era 2.0 for him to change. That way I can change the way I see him as a head coach, if that makes any sense. Now keep in mind, he has shown no indications through his years in charge of the United States that he would do any of these. So am I optimistic? No. Am I hopeful? Maybe? Yeah, I think I'm just going to say I'm a hopeful fan at this point. And also, out of curiosity, comment what would you like to see Gregg improve from his previous cycle. And in the comment section down below, let me know if you are or were Berhalter in or Berhalter out. Okay, let's begin the Berhalter to-do list. The first thing I want Gregg Berhalter to do is repair his relationship with some key players. And understand that out of everything I'm going to mention in this video, this is the one I'm the most optimistic about. I don't think we're going to have issues between Berhalter and any of the players I'm going to mention, besides one. There's one that it's simply not going to be repaired. I can sort of deal with it. I'm not happy about it. And that is John Brooks. So I'm not going to mention that. Under Berhalter, Brooks is not going to come back. That's not going to happen. But he needs to repair his relationship with, for example, Ricardo Pepi. I know Pepi came out and said that everything will be fine, but they need to sit down and it has to actually be fine. And I'm not saying that they need to, love each other and kiss. I'm just saying they need to respect each other. I'm not sure Pepi does at the moment until him and Berhalter sit down and actually repair that relationship. But the most important one of them all is Gio Reyna, because it would be very naive to say that there's no issues between those two, right? There was issues during the World Cup, there were issues during the World Cup, and then there were issues between the parents and Berhalter, and that obviously affected Gio Reyna in one way, shape, or form. Now, do we think this is a situation where everything can be repaired? I think it can. Am I going to go on and say that Gio Reyna and Berhalter are going to be BFFs? No, probably not. They just need to respect each other and get along. That's it. And I'm pretty sure Matt Crocker and our federation, as stupid as they are and as incompetent as they are, I don't think they maybe asked Gio Reyna for an opinion on the coach, but they probably talked to him to see if the situation with Berhalter was beyond repair or not. And I think in a professional way, it probably is repairable. But let's just put it this way. These were two families that were very close, the Reynas and the Berhalters. I don't think they're going to be spending Christmas or Thanksgiving together. And I don't think we really need that for the US men's national team. So again, the first thing he has to do is repair his relationship with all these key players. There's maybe a couple others that we could mention, but Pepi and Reyna are the main ones. John Brooks, I would like that to happen. I just don't think it will. But before we continue to reason number 2, a quick word from our sponsor. Thank you very much, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service. And you know what's good about it? It's 100% online. BetterHelp also has over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists to help you. It's very easy to get started. All you have to do is answer a few questions here and there, list your preferences so that BetterHelp can match you with the best therapist for your specific needs. But don't worry, if the one they match you doesn't really suit you, you don't like him and you want to change, they do that too. They'll change it for you with no additional charges. Keep in mind that the most convenient part of all of this is that you can talk to your therapist through text, chat, phone, or video call, whichever one you prefer. But if you do a live chat, get a good mic like mine, or don't. You don't need it. You can also message them at any time and schedule live sessions. You see, with BetterHelp, you will have a far more diverse range of options for your therapy, since you'll have 30,000 therapists as options, while when you go in person, you are limited to those that are nearby, right? You're not going to travel from one city to another for a therapy session, or you will if that city's not 4 hours away or in another country. So the quality does not drop. It's more affordable and far more flexible. You can use the link on the description right now to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. The link will be on the description, and it's BetterHelp, not health. That is HELP. And thank you very much, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this video. Now let's go to reason number 2, or I guess change number 2 that we need Berhalter to do. And keep in mind, the number 1 that I mentioned is the one I think will happen. All the other ones I'm about to mention, I am extremely pessimistic. And the second one is for Gregg Berhalter to move on from his favorites, but not slowly like he did sometimes last cycle. Move on now. And listen, you know who his favorites are. We can go on and talk about him. Aaron Long, Kellen Acosta, I guess Walker Zimmerman can go into that list as well, even though he can be useful for the U.S. men's national team still, so I'm going to skip on Zimmerman for that one. Sebastian Lletget, that he has moved on from Lletget, but that era took way too long. Paul Riola, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Christian Roldan. I can keep going. You don't need these players. I mean, think about it this way. In the World Cup, he literally played Shaq Moore over Joe Scally. Was Joe Scally that much worse 6 months ago? Wasn't he already playing in the Bundesliga and holding his own against Bayern? But he still played Shaq Moore over Joe Scally. Let's also not forget, after we qualified to the World Cup, every single friendly, every single Nations League game that we played leading to the 2022 World Cup, he started Aaron freaking Long. And then, obviously, during the World Cup, he didn't play Long because he finally learned, but that's another example of moving a bit too slow with players that are mediocre at best, and you continue to play them. So he has to move on from these favorites. I don't want to see them in the roster. I don't want to see them getting minutes when we have the A squad available. There's no more excuses in regards to the team being too young. A lot of these players that were the young ones in the beginning of the last cycle, they're now very experienced. Pulisic, Tyler Adams, McKennie, to a certain extent, even some of the guys that are still young, like Dest, Richards. All these guys have so much experience in general right now that you don't need washed up, mediocre veterans. If you want to bring veterans, bring guys like Tim Ream, for example, right? That one you can continue to bring in. Some of our goalkeepers are also experienced, so that would be fine. So again, move on from his favorites. Will he do it? Probably not, but fingers crossed. Let's hope he does it. Now, number 3 here, or the third reason I want to talk about here, it would have been just to improve his roster selections, but that one I kind of talked about. That goes in the category of moving on from his favorites, just pick the best players. But then here comes part 2. Pick the right starting 11, which I guess that goes also into abandoning his favorites, and better in-game management. I'll give a few examples. For example, remember the Panama away game in World Cup qualifying? That was pretty bad in regards to player selection, right? Can you disagree with that? How about the Canada game at home? That was terrible in-game management. Terrible subs, or one might argue, way too late subs. Zardes starting against Canada in World Cup qualifying when he was already benched in the Columbus Crew. Jesus Ferreira starting against the Netherlands in the World Cup and pretty much playing for the Netherlands. I thought that guy was Dutch for a second in that game. Again, the starting 11 has to be better. He has to stop picking some bizarre names for certain games. And the in-game management. Very often Gregg Berhalter took way too long to make changes, and even to a certain extent it got us to almost not want Tim Ream in the national team anymore. When Mexico subbed in Diego Lainez in the Nations League final to torch up and light up a slower Tim Ream, and it worked, that's poor reading of the game for Gregg Berhalter. In multiple occasions that happened. He doesn't adapt, he doesn't adjust, and hopefully this cycle we see some good changes throughout matches and good substitutions and, you know, flexibility tactically, something he didn't have. That's going to be something we're going to talk about very soon. So number 3, just to summarize it once again, better in-game management and better starting 11s, which kind of all seems just obvious. Isn't that the bare minimum to be a good coach? The fourth thing that I want to see change from Gregg Berhalter is for him to have some tactical flexibility. Let go of that rigid system that he loves so much. You want to do positional play? That's fine. Usually positional play does kill the fluidity of a team, but at least to build it in a way that it works for our best players. And I'm going to say that once again. Build around your best players. Don't build around your system. You see, I prefer when the United States plays with the fullback sitting back instead of pushing forward. Berhalter loved to have them push high up the field, and then you get a bunch of like nonsense A-Rob crosses that never hit the target, and it just simply doesn't work. Play Giovanni Reyna central. Stop that whole MMA midfield that's very pragmatic. Have a creator. When you play with a three-man midfield, ideally you want to have a destroyer, a box-to-box midfielder, and a creator, a playmaker. Tyler Adams is the perfect destroyer, and clearly Yunus Musa can play that too. Box-to-box midfielder, you can have Weston McKennie, you can also have Yunus Musa. Now the creator is Gio Reyna. Stop playing him at the right wing. Play him as the 10. BJ Callahan, Anthony Hudson, they all did that, and you saw, well, all of us saw, what Gio Reyna can do when he plays as an attacking midfielder or even as a central midfielder. We got to stop that nonsense of Berhalter ball where it's just pure soccer terrorism and you just whip in crosses with no real poacher to put the ball in the back of the net. And listen, Balogun is also not a poacher. He is a brilliant center forward, but his role is not as a poacher. I'm pretty sure in the World Cup we were the second team with the most amount of crosses in the group stage. So essentially, to summarize this tiny little rant that I just had, build your system around your best players and not try to fit your players into the system that you believe is indestructible. And if you ask me who are our best players, I can name a few. In regards to the forwards, I like to play with fluidity, and that would be probably with Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Balogun, and then you also can build around some players like Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie. Don't force the system. That's all I'm begging. Now, the fifth thing that he has to change, and it's the last one of this video, and by now, hopefully you dropped a like if you want to, and you commented down below, what do you want Gregg Berhalter to improve in his second era? The fifth one is to behave like an adult. You see, it's exactly what I just said. Berhalter needs to start behaving like an adult. The selfie in the middle of the game, those silly bounce passes, you know, it was funny at first, but then just looks pretty stupid after that. The silly mugs in press conferences, the shoes or sneakers, actually, those sneakers and shoes, they kick ass. They really do. I probably should not use the word kick and Berhalter in this video, so I apologize for that. Probably shouldn't put those two words together, you know? Sorry. Kinda. But not really. I also think he needs to stop with those stupid press conferences like the so-called dominant loss against Canada. Do you guys remember that when we lost to Canada 2-0, but it was apparently a dominant loss? Verticality, a lot of these things. Behave like an adult. I want to remind everyone one thing. Usually teams absorb the personality of the coach. Look at Atletico Madrid. They literally play and look like Diego Simeone. Manchester City, Pep Guardiola. The team absorbs the personality of the head coach. And I want to ask you one question. Was maybe Berhalter's childish behavior one of the many reasons we kept choking when we played away? Was that why the US men's national team seemed soft at times? Now, just to make it clear, it's obviously not entirely Gregg Berhalter's fault that we were terrible away. But I do think that a lot of it is on him. And I think him behaving like an adult would actually help how this team performs. No, seriously. And it would also make us like him a bit better. And I do want to say, this is one of the things that I'm willing to overlook and ignore if he does all the other things I mentioned in this video, but I still think it's important for the head coach of the US men's national team to behave like someone his age. Now, before I end this video, I do have some final thoughts here. Look, I didn't mention results, but of course, results matter. And to be fair, and to give Gregg Berhalter credit, in his last cycle, he got the results for the most part, right? At least he did everything he was supposed to do. He got the results. He got us the World Cup. He won trophies, got us out of the group. He just never really overachieved or got us to punch above our weight or even got us to play some enjoyable soccer. To me, World Cup quarterfinals in 2026 is the bare minimum to be considered a success. But I want to enjoy the ride. Even if he accomplishes that, even if he accomplishes all the results, I want to enjoy watching this team the same way I enjoyed under BJ Callahan and Anthony Hudson. But as I said, of course, results matter. Winning is good, and winning makes us feel good, and we're the United States and we like to win. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Can Berhalter win you over? What does he have to do to win you over? What do you agree with me? What do you disagree with me? Thank you very much for watching. Drop a like before you go, and have a great day.